Hi, welcome to CPD Me. My name is Andrew Umrod and I am the founder of CPD Me. Back in 2009, we went on a roller coaster journey to create a simple platform that you could document all your learning and development and keep it safe in one place. 10 years later, we're still here, we're stronger than ever, and we're here to provide a fabulous platform for you to watch some of these great learning and development webinars, but still, more importantly, keep an accurate record of your CPD. Sit back, enjoy the webinar, and we'll tell you all about the great benefits of joining as a member after the show.
Good evening. Welcome everyone. My name's Jamie. I'm a sort of lifelong ambulance driver. I think I've just remembered earlier that once we get into next week, I'll join the ambulance service 28 years ago. And that was a much simpler time. And I think that's one of the things we're going to reflect upon a bit this evening. You know, when I joined the ambulance service, I think I did a 6-week course to become a paramedic eventually. And then they gave you some very strict protocols and you read them and they didn't have to read anything for the next 5 years because nothing changed until the next set of protocols came out and you did what the protocol said and you know, everything was good. But now, of course, our world is increasingly complex with the nature of the calls we deal with, the wide variety, the extent of treatment that we can offer, the number of pathways and so on and so on and so on. It's an immensely complex and technical job, and so as part of that, once we're into that sort of big decision-making model and holding a lot of responsibility now as autonomous healthcare professionals, we can't ignore that, you know, whatever system we have, that we have humans in it, and that's what our key learning about from this area from aviation. We know that aviation only solved, and prior to that, NASA, who invented this stuff, they only solved their problems the day they accepted that they had human beings in their systems and they couldn't change those people. It doesn't matter how long you spend training an airline captain, and that's quite a long time and a huge amount of money, they will still crash the plane every now and again. And it's only when they accepted that they were able to address that. And that's something that's really come into medicine in the last few years through some excellent work we're going to talk about. Whatever you call this, you know, human factors, you know, CRM, the term from aviation, crew resource management, non-technical skills, whatever you want to refer to it. I think tonight is just about recognizing how in practice we can see how these things influence us all as clinicians. I still work as a clinician, an enhanced care paramedic for South Central Basics, amongst other things. So dealing with a lot of very complex scenarios. So how do we recognize when these things are influencing us, maybe sort of be able to, you know, manage that a little bit and deal with the sides of our role. We've also got the technical side to our role versus the non-technical, and we tend to practice the technical more in simulation and OSCEs and so on, and not the non-technical so much. And that's probably something that you probably need to get more into. And then, as our world has expanded, we've come away from protocols and algorithms more into guidelines and more autonomy, and I think that's the way we're going to keep on heading. You know, where we have guidelines and we make a lot of autonomous decisions ourselves as to whether that follow that guideline or whether to deviate from it with good clinical intent. I think all that's really, really important. And decisions are very difficult. You know, who's making the decisions? You know, we've got multiple people on scene. For those that are familiar with sort of human factors presentations and some of the stuff we do on airway training and human factors courses, the top left picture there is a screenshot from the Elaine Bromley case, from the simulation recreation of the Elaine Bromley case, a very classic disaster where a group of superb clinicians worked in a system that allowed them to unmeaningfully kill the patient. You can't sort of say it any other way, you know. And the system allowed a lot of poor decisions to be made, which most of the time you'd get away with, and some days you don't. So who's the decider? Who's making decisions? What sort of person should the decision maker be? That's very, very difficult. If we've got multiple people arriving at scene, who's in charge? If you've got 2 ambulances, 3 ambulances, if you've now got 3 paramedics and 3 ECAs or whatever flavor of second person you have on the ambulance, depending on where you are, who's the decision? Who's the leader? Who's in charge? If everyone's exactly the same, unless someone turns up who's meant to be in charge, how do we decide who's in charge? You can't say it's the first ambulance crew there, they're in charge. What if they're the worst ambulance crew in the whole region? Who knows? What if, multiple things affect this? And then we also have problems with sort of bandwidth. If we're dealing with too much stuff, we're not able to offload some of that. And there can be lots of stuff going on around us, other people from our service asking for updates, radios going because someone else wants an update on the clinical status. HEMS are calling wanting a clinical update. Fire want to know something, police want to know something, police want to know if they can breathalyze the patient in a minute when they're not in cardiac arrest, all this sort of stuff. And this eats into our bandwidth and also provides interruptions. And sometimes when we looked at our pace challenging before, sometimes we need to interrupt things. But what we have to be really careful of is, interruptions that have no clinical benefit, and they just become a distraction and take away from our sort of thinking and pathway and so on. So how we lead scenarios is a real difficult. We talked about hierarchy before, and hierarchy in pre-hospital care is a problematic thing. When you have even a ECA paramedic ambulance crew, you have a hierarchy like in the cockpit of a plane, a captain, the co-pilot. And it's really important to manage that hierarchy, that people feel they can speak up. Certainly on the occasion when I do ambulance shifts, or if I'm at a scene of a complex incident, I'm always really keen to ask people, is there anything you can think of? Is there anything we should be doing? If I'm doing an ambulance shift, I'll actually say to who I'm working with at the start of the shift, I'm just human. I can make mistakes like anyone else. I might, for some crazy reason, decide to give someone completely the wrong drug, and it's the wrong drug. And if that's the case, what I want you to do is stand up and say so. And that's how they manage it in sort of aviation perspective. The captain ordering the co-pilot to tell them if they're wrong. That way, no one's broken the hierarchy because the person is just following an order. It's making sure people appreciate they can speak up. It's really, really important. So the answer to how we manage hierarchy is quite difficult. And we've also got to look at different hierarchies within our scenes of why are people there? I mean, in our region, we have team leaders, but the team leader is there to manage the scene, not to be a clinical team leader. And that is their role. And they shouldn't step out of that role because that sort of blurs the boundaries of, no job is being done well. People have a role, so if you're supposed to be in a role, then, staying in that sort of pathway is good. And it may, of course, be situationally specific then, so in different situations, different people might need to be in charge because they have different experiences of it. So you can't always say, well, they're always in charge. In different situations, you might not want them to be in charge. Someone else might know better. So it's a very, very difficult thing to make decisions around. If anyone's interested in any further reading about this theme as a whole, which I've tried to stay away from sort of the, theory behind human nature stuff and so on. We do run a course about that. We identified a few years ago there was no sort of human factors learning, so we run a sort of one-day introduction to human factors for pre-hospital care. But these are the books I would sort of recommend if you want to buy a book and read. Peak Performance, Stephen Hearns' book, is absolutely excellent and delves into some very deep technical themes and where all this stuff comes from. But also, Decision Making in Paramedic Practice by Andy Collin. The section in there about human factors is absolutely excellent as well, amongst many other themes that it covers. And as part of my work as a sort of educator that works all over the world, one of the things we need to be aware of is that we should be very proud of the books we produce in the UK. We are one of very few countries in the world that has paramedic and pre-hospital textbooks written by paramedics.
So, you've watched the webinar. Let's just hope you've created some key learning points from watching that webinar, and more importantly, you're going to take some time later to document them using either the CPD-Me app or indeed the CPD-Me dashboard. So let me tell you about some of the great benefits of joining CPD-Me. Firstly, you can keep an accurate record of all your learning and development from here onwards for the future, but more importantly, for anything that you've had historically. So whether you've attended a course, you've read a journal, or you've attended a conference or webinar, all that information can be completely backdated back to 1900, I think. So plenty of time there to keep a good log of what you've done historically. More importantly, you can also plan what you have for the future. So if you have some future planned learning, you could document that on our dashboard and it will give you a prompt reminder that you need to reflect upon your learning journey. So membership, and that gives you unlimited access to all our previous webinars, where you'll also get a free certificate that will pop directly into your portfolio once you've watched that webinar, as well as other great benefits that are listed on our website. Don't delay. The key action is click below, join with this special offer link, and we'll have you up and running in no time. You can download the mobile app, and we really will make your CPD easy.